Good morning. 8:29 a.m. on Saturday, May 2nd, 2020 in Sarasota, Florida. This is a little update of just where all the pieces of the story are today. I'll hit the big ones. So I'd say the biggest, I'm getting close here to finally having a workable, creative framework around which, within which, to share and express all these magical things that have comprised my life this past decade. And it is going to be done through storylines. Fairly certain, I know it's going to be 10 storylines, but I do know I'm going to have to narrow that down, so still by a couple at least, and I haven't made that final determination. However, I would say that 7 of these storylines are solid right now that I'm going to go forward with. And I'm going to try to address a little bit of each storyline today. And like I said, I finally think the recordings are, I knew I couldn't force this. This is a sidebar. I'll come back to the update of the storylines in just a second, but slight sidebar. I have very purposely been recording and posting to my YouTube channel for over 7 years. And while in the beginning my discernment was at an extremely naive, innocent, I even dare say unwise level, I opened myself up and revealed tremendous vulnerability with really no conscious awareness of what I was opening myself up to, namely the energetic reactions of anyone that I shared any component of my dream, my vision, my work with. As such, and the only way to learn the lesson of discernment was to go through something like that. The only way to learn when does it feel like I'm about to share too much or reveal too much too soon? The only way to learn those lessons is to quote unquote make those mistakes, to do it the wrong way, if you will. But even describing it like that is so far from my language. I really refrain and personally don't even believe there is such a thing as a mistake. It's just something desirable happens or something undesirable happens. I kind of have replaced mistake with undesirable. And I don't see things as even necessarily being quote unquote wrong, a wrong decision. I've gotten over the past decade a lot more careful with the intricacies of our words and how much energy we've associated as human beings with our definitions and labels and words, and what that very real effect is in any interaction. So I've become even more cautious of the words I use. And so people that are listening, and it's very few, the number of people that, very, very few. No one has been like following my channel for all 7 years. No one, not a single person. Very few have even seen parts of it. But I do have one person in my world right now, really only one person, that I would say I feel as if they see, informed, they see, they know, they're connected, they're able to communicate with me and talk about where we are in life. I feel like they see more of me from all these unique layers than anybody else. 99.9% of the people in my life right now, they see only a fraction. They see only a fraction, meaning, I don't want to go off too much on a tangent. I've been fighting. That's been a big point of resistance for me because I'm so yearning to feel what it feels like when somebody just glances. They don't even have to be cognizant of it. Like they see the greater vision that's been pulling me. And it's sort of the same vision because it's like the vision of oneness. But how does a vision of oneness look in a world of seemingly separateness? That's the beauty, dilemma, paradox, magic of the moment. We've got this, Bashar was a strong influence in my world spiritually early. He was my midpoint. I stumbled onto Bashar probably, 2 or 3 years into, 2 years maybe 3 into what I would call my conscious spiritual journey. I kind of felt like I had graduated a bit to Bashar from Abraham Hicks. Still love Abraham, but I don't listen to any of these folks anymore. But early in my awakening, it's very much a rewiring of our brains. It's a rewiring of the literal connections in our brains that represent the thought energy, consciousness. And so in the beginning, what I found, I just needed to hear entities or people talk about the world from this greater truth with the capital T perspective, where it's like, okay, listen, I know how it looks on Earth, on your Earth game board there, but I'm telling you, that's not the greater truth. I know it looks like death is the worst thing in the world, and it feels like the worst thing in the world when you lose. For some, when they lose their plants. For others, when they lose their animals. And for, others, when they lose humans. For all of us, death, seemingly, I know it looks like it's painful and bad and horrible, but the great truth of that is it's, you guys got this all wrong, man. And how you look at it and how you frame it and what perspective you see creates how you're experiencing it. So it's like, again, living the oneness and talking about life on planet Earth, being in it but not of it, is what I needed early on. I needed to hear and feel, more importantly, feel through my heart. Feel it. That's our indicator. Abraham Hicks always said your emotions are your indicator on your journey. They are absolutely essential in the Earth dimension. That's our guidepost. That's how we know. Because from the grand truth of things, we are all light. We are all love. We are all God. We are all, we're in perfect well-being, like at the grand scheme of things. So if you're the greater truth, the essence of us that is expressed through this vessel. If at any time, though, while we're in vessel, we're feeling anything less than bliss and happiness and joy and peace and love, which is what we are, that is our indicator. Go deeper with that. What's going on? Change the focus. Either go deeper with it if you really want to kind of get at understanding yourself and learning how to cease creating those experiences that make you feel that way for yourself. You got to go deeper. I knew this was going to happen. I knew I was going to get the phone call. Oh gosh. Okay. I got to pause this recording, but we'll come back to an update to the storylines in a moment. Okay. Pause. Okay. Unpaused. This will represent the first time I've ever done that. I've never paused a recording and returned to it after a period of time. I normally would have just done a brand new recording. So, yeah, minor, but in my world, everything has some sort of meaning. So we shall see what, if anything, that reveals. Okay, that was an important conversation because one of the oh gosh, I guess I won't go. I have to establish a trust to put my assets in and, living will and, person to make medical decisions and financial decisions should I become incapacitated. None of these things were seemingly to me, they were important. I probably should have been considering them even before the purchase of my home. But ever since the purchase of my home, it becomes really important. From the physical perspective of, the fact that this is a big asset and I don't want it to become the property of anybody that doesn't care about it and or me, i.e. the state. And therefore I need to take the proper precautions legally. And that process is a very challenging thing for the character of Alyson because personally, I don't believe in any of that. Like, I know that those are all human-made ways that we've created to navigate the world that and it's helped to create the world that we're in. And I'm trying to focus and be and live in a world that doesn't need all that crap, because it's just that. It's middle stuff. It's crap. It's just, but I finally matured enough to recognize that despite that being my personal belief, I am in a human vessel navigating 3D Earth. In 3D Earthland, these things, this is how the game is played. It's just, you can't, go ahead, don't play it, but, ignoring it doesn't make it that it doesn't go away. Like, it behooves you. For me, I aim to integrate myself in as minimal ways as possible in the mainstream sort of world and within the systems as we sort of know it from a mainstream perspective, what's sort of common and necessary, legal, all that. Because I believe in a very different way of human interaction where we don't need those things. Because all those things have become is the opposite of human. They have become inhuman. Those things are all transactions. I don't want to live in a world of transactions. I want to live in a world where humans are connecting to one another. I don't need to connect to 7 billion people. I don't need to connect to 1 million people. But I want to have deep, meaningful relationships with the hundreds, perhaps thousands of people from now to the end of my life that I will have closer interactions, i.e. not somebody I'm just driving by at a light. Like, I believe in desire for a deep, meaningful life, not to be a number on a balance sheet in a transaction. And all of this stuff, home ownership, banks and assets and debts and all these things, they've become extremely inhuman. And given how major they are as pieces of this earth game, it just blows my mind. Blows my mind that you can buy a home and never sit face to face across from the person that's making that happen. I just, that gone is the day where that's how it's done. It's very contrary to everything that I believe in, see, and want to be. But I finally have accepted you got to take care of it, because I certainly don't want the asset to be left with the state. I want it to be in the hands of somebody that at least knows me a little bit, cares about me a little bit. So having that phone conversation and getting this task done is a very real update on one of the storylines that I referenced prior to taking the pause break. And I referenced them in numbers, that I 7 storylines that I feel like are really solid here, but I'm narrowing it to 10, and I still have to decide on the final few. One of them is the storyline of this home. 2380 Datura will be right now is the title of that storyline, which is the physical address of this home. This home is arguably, it's without argument, the biggest physical representation of the leap of faith I took when I launched and fully went all in on my own life via the launching of my company of me on my mission to manifest all of my greatest dreams. This home is without argument the largest physical manifestation and thing that's quote unquote real and observable to show how the story has been lived and evolved. So not going any further into that, whereas a lot of the other stuff is more, it's a lot of feelings, a lot of emotion, a lot of feelings, a lot of intuition, a lot of stuff I cannot point to represents the vast majority of all the other sort of ways that that I've done this. I'm making the dreams come true, but 90% of them right now are not observable. But this house is, and that is why it's such an important storyline. And ultimately I'm sharing a story of trying to live love within a world that it's based on fear. All these systems, that's all based on lack of trust, fear, and I would argue increasingly over the past couple of decades, less and less human and more as just a transaction. And worse, just a money transaction, not even recognizing that the money is only one expression of energy and all the other layers of exchange going on. That's the only one that's become of any consequence. And it's my goal has been since taking a 6-figure leap of faith 7.5 years ago, is to create a life from this oneness place where there is an absolute knowing, and the actions demonstrate this knowing that we are all connected. Gone is the world where you would do anything that would hurt your neighbor. You wouldn't take advantage, you wouldn't manipulate, certainly not being aware of it. And I would argue that a lot of these systems, especially the ones associated with home ownership, are some of the most corrupt things I've ever felt in my 44 years. It's the yuckiest I've ever felt. Both times. And I went through 2 very different processes of purchasing this house. The first time in 2016, the second time last year, 2019. Equally, even more disturbing and disgusting when I had to go deeper in it last year. And that's going to be part of the sharing of this story. Because, and again, I'm going to refrain from trying to explain it further. But I take the moment to explain the seemingly very detailed personal aspect of my fact that I paused because I was receiving a phone call from my mom regarding a discussion that I've never had with somebody. Hey, are you okay with being the successor of my trust? Like, if I die, this is what I want. I don't want to be on a machine for more than 30 days. I want to be cremated. Let's keep this as simple as possible. I trust you. You're my family. Like, I trust you to do right now. My work's not developed enough where down the line, things will be distributed and used and designated to be used in a different way. But none of those are in motion right now. So right now, it's easy. You're my family. I trust you. Do with it however my home and my assets can serve the greatest number of people to the greatest extent possible. That is what I desire. If somebody in my immediate family or extended family needs a home and space, it's theirs. Short of that, sell it, live in it, do whatever. Just use it and everything within it to serve and help the greatest number of people to the greatest extent possible. If it's given to somebody that's ready to write the book, their novel, and they live here rent-free for 2 years to write their novel, and it only helps one person, but it helps one person launch a dream like that, and you deem you got somebody that's ready in that way, go for it. If you want to sell it all and just give the money to one organization, go for it. Like, I trust you. I ain't going to be around. Okay? I trust you. All right, that's enough for 2380 Datura. I don't know that I'm actually going to continue with a full update of all the 7 storylines, but I'm going to at least mention the other storylines right now. The house is key. The house it's the extension of me. It's my space. It's where my work, this house is enormous. So that is arguably the biggest storyline. The storyline that right now, today, on May 2nd, represents the second quote-unquote biggest storyline is the farm. Holy shit! Like, the farm, the organic farm of which I've been a part in some capacity since first moving here in 2008. The farm, which is the hub of so much of my conscious, awake spiritual life. The farm, which is absolute anomaly of business in every way imaginable. And that was as close to going down as a business, ceasing to be a business, as close as any business can come, especially the way that this one is operated. And the virus has saved it. And specifically, the virus has saved it through, well, I guess 2 things. One, I think there's a lot of people that normally fly back north that are still in town. And so shopping. 2, I just think their perception, and it's accurate, at least for the stuff that we grow, that some of the food being handled is being handled by far fewer people than in the more mainstream lines. For our stuff that we grow, that's absolutely true all the time. We harvest it that morning a lot of times when it's sold. But there is a great deal of products that we sell, fruits and vegetables and olive oil and coconut oil and cheeses and eggs and milk. I mean, we sell so much in our little market, and it's not made and operated at our place. We go to a huge global organic distributor. And a lot of times the big chains are getting their food from the same place. But our market has been very busy in person. And hard to tell why that's the case, but those are two possibilities. Mostly that the perception and reality is that it's touched by far fewer people, which is, in my opinion, a pretty accurate perception of what it really is. Also, we launched an online market where customers have never before been able to place through Jessica's directly, through the farm, Jessica's directly, an online order that can be picked up and or delivered. Interestingly, my brother and I, back in 2008, when I first landed here, it was specifically to help, and I invested in his business of delivering produce from Jessica's. Now, this was 2008. It was our business. It was not part of Jessica's. It was our business that was entirely dependent on Jessica's. We were young. We were much younger, much less wise. It was volatile. It didn't work. And we ended up parting ways. It almost destroyed our relationship, but I wasn't prepared to leave what I had just invested thousands of dollars in. So I operated this little grocery delivery business, exactly what we're doing now. I operated it for 2 years here in Sarasota before moving to Seattle. And a year in Michigan in between that move to Seattle from Sarasota. And so how crazy is it that here 12 years later, he and I, my brother and I, are doing exactly what the intention was back when I first moved here. But we couldn't figure out again, I won't go off on that storyline any further here, but that's the biggest thing is right now this market has launched. He and I are the only two handling that aspect of the farm, and that is directly contributing to why the farm is being saved financially, because the online market is generating an extra 25+% of sales per week in just these short 4 days of Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday. It's he and I doing all of it. And the web guy, and our wonderful web guy, Eugene. The three of us are basically wholly responsible for that program. And as such, it is work at a time where I lost my other work, which is storyline number 3 that I'm about to talk about with Ironman. But I lost all my work, and instantly something popped up that not only, well, it doesn't replace, it doesn't yet replace, and it's not going to in the next few months, the amount that I've lost as a result of my events with Ironman and other local races, Best Damn Race and Ironman. It's not going to cover that loss, but it is at least preventing me from having to dip any further into my savings. So on a very practical level, it's a job in town that's paying me well. And on a much deeper level, it is so loaded with meaning for me and layers and depth of beauty. But it's intense still right now because we're sort of still in this reconciling period, because this is not what the plan was for 2020, right? We're all being thrown into, wait a second, this wasn't the plan. And so big difference. I had just cleared my plate of the farm. I had literally quit on the fall equinox, not intending to come back because I had finally just reached my threshold of frustration over what that farm could be and the inability to make that happen. For lack of a shared vision, for lack of a relationship and communication system that allowed us to do it. And here we are just 6 months later, and oh my goodness, it really is a lot still to process, because it's not in any way anything but a miracle, and not a minor miracle in the world of the farm. This is big time. So storyline number 1, 2380 Datura Street. Storyline number 2, the farm. Storyline number 3, the next biggest one, is Ironman. And the title, the working title, it's not snazzy, but the working title of this storyline is Becoming Iron Woman Within Ironman. Again, I say working because I'm not so sure, but that's sort of what's going on. Like, it's basically, I've been part of, and it fell into my lap to be part of Ironman, a very masculine energy. Not lots of females involved in this world, lots and lots, but we all have masculine and feminine energy within us, and yes, it tends to be generally that, men, souls that are in male bodies exude a, generally more masculine than feminine energy, and vice versa for women. Souls that are in female bodies tend to generally release and live by more, have more feminine energy. But we're at this crazy, unprecedented time where the combination of that is wild. Like, we are all feminine and masculine. We have all had lives as females, and we've all had lives as males. And so we've all got this within us. But it is a statement of fact that our third dimensional earth game, all the systems that we play within, the financial system, the economic system, the healthcare system, the education system, these were all white male created. We're still working within systems and trying to, quote unquote, fix the problems within systems that were white male created. Minorities were not, the founding fathers were a bunch of white guys. And all the systems that we have all go back to when, this country, and this country has influenced, as a ripple effect, the world's economic, financial, environmental, healthcare standards. Greatly influenced. Now that influence has begun to switch and lessen in recent sort of years here. But in general, this all has masculine base, and Ironman is an example of masculine energy. And I'm not saying that negatively, I'm not saying that as a judgment, but although it's like a strong, focused, empowered, confident, as a company, that's what it is that. And that is expressed very clearly and obviously through the nature of what the company is, this endurance athletic company, and what these human bodies do to get through and do and complete an Ironman and a half Ironman is not yet commonplace. It's not commonplace. So this is a very masculine representation of energy, and yet me, whose primary, one of the major things I would say I'm being called to do and be, is this walloping energy of feminine, to help try to balance out our world, which is clearly not balanced. And in the most general way, it's not balanced in masculine, what we label sort of as masculine and feminine energies. And I'm not going to go too far down those tangents, but in no small way, the feminine is sort of the unseen, the intuitive. In a male's way, they're like, show me it. I'll believe it when you show me it. When you show me it, then it's real. It ain't real until it's manifested. And the feminine way, again, these are huge generalizations, but if you could, just for argument's sake, follow that. The feminine is the unseen. And so, what you can't see, what you can't point to, but yet with everything within you that it's just as real, quote on, just as true and just as valid as anything that you can point to. And inherent in that, obviously, is trust and faith and all these powerful world truth things, universe truth. These are the greater truths, that there's so much more unseen than seen. Yet we've created a world where we don't really know how to handle. Our systems don't have a lot of room for making powerful, decisions based on what you can't see. And I'm not suggesting that we necessarily do that. You can't go from one extreme to the other overnight. But to just eliminate and say it's invalid and not, not equally as likely or valid as something that you can see is not accurate. And we're at a time where the only ones that can stand up for that are the ones who have experienced and know that to be true. And that is what I am dedicating this entire life to, because I know that unseen, and I feel and see and have seen that unseen, this beautiful, cooperative, thriving version of Earth that's based in love and not all this bullshit middle stuff, money, transactions. I've seen that since I was a kid. And through my spiritual awakening journey, I have remembered that at least in part, that's what I'm here to do. And I'm ready finally to do it. And I don't believe, as part of that, I don't believe in accidents or coincidences. So the fact that Ironman, this wholly masculine company, an opportunity, a huge opportunity with them, falls in my lap 5 years ago, as I am aiming to be this walloping energy of feminine, with the intent and knowing that and belief that the world needs this. That's not an accident, man. I didn't land in the middle of this worldwide, powerful company with, by the way, they are some of, the best people. If you want to talk about rebuilding a society, rebuilding culture, rebuilding society, bring an Ironman crew into a specific focused goal. Man, I have only respect and admiration for the folks that I've worked with whom I've worked directly on the ground in the execution of any one of our events, which is a big undertaking. Nothing but respect and admiration. When I talk about it being masculine and lacking in the feminine, I'm not intending that to be a negative thing, but I am calling a spade a spade. I can tell you from my own experience, which is the only thing from which I ever speak. I'm only speaking about what I know. And what I know is only what I've experienced. I'm not going to speak, and I will acknowledge when I'm sort of piggybacking off of, and I will attempt to do it minimally because I don't like speaking in generalizations and or stereotypes and or ever speaking of anything from separateness or us versus them. However, that's the reality of this mainstream world, and it's like I only want to speak to it, and I'll acknowledge when I'm speaking to it to meet somebody that's in that world, to help just connect the dots, if somebody wants to see it, to how we could get from a world of fear to a world of love. That's all I'm trying to do. I've built the bridge. I've already built it for myself. That's what I've been doing the past decade. When I invested 6 figures in myself, 6 figures, through 0% credit, that was the only way that I was going to do it. It was like I shot an arrow across this vast crevice. I shot the arrow, and now I got to build the bridge over there. That's where I'm going. That's what I see. I see a world of love. I see how all the same players, even within their systems of work, their systems of finance, their systems of healthcare, their systems of economics, staying within those systems, but just changing the underlying energy being inspired by love as opposed to being motivated by fear. Inspired by love instead of being motivated by fear. That's what my whole life has been, this conscious journey the past 10 years. Okay, so I'll close off the Ironman. That's the Ironman gist. And at the moment, all of our events they said that a Texas one's going to be taking place in June. Most of the events through June have already been canceled. Not all of them. It is a huge question mark on how essential a race, running race, or an Ironman's case, because they own Rock and Roll Marathon. So a running race and or triathlons, really hard to imagine that they're going to take place with any great amount of frequency for the rest of this year. But I'm literally smack dab in the middle. I'm a contract employee of them. I've been a contract employee since 2014. I've been kind of a full-time, what I refer to as a full-time contractor. If you've got over 10 races in a 7-month period, you're that's like a different tier than, and again, no better. It's just, this has been a huge part of my world for the past, since 2015. I've traveled minimally 10 weeks, more closely probably 14, 15 weeks. I've been on the road for Ironman starting in 2015. I worked a couple of races in 2014, which obviously led to what was offered to me in 2015. I have done nothing but study and observe their world from the perspective that I have. This hippy-dippy, airy-fairy new age, but badass woman, right? Like, I'm in humble land there. You can't get much lower on the totem pole than being a female contractor in the roles that I've been in. You know, I mean, that's just the reality, and that's fine, but I've been in humble land. I'm nowhere near doing what I'm capable of doing with my mind. I'm nowhere near being given those opportunities. I've not yet been given opportunities to tap into my creativity. I've not yet begun to really tap into the amount of love and passionate energy that I have for life. Not specifically related to triathlon, but just bringing it up a few, branches in the tree, more expansive. And what is that with a more appropriate role for me in that world? What does that look like? That's what I've been trying to create through my company of me as it pertains to Ironman, hence why it's its own storyline. And I intuitively knew that 2020 was going to be a big year for me, taking that step of more consciously beginning to share with people, this is the idea I have, this is how it's going to be implemented, this is where the money is going to come from, and in most cases, it's simply been a reorganization of assets and things that are already in place. Almost all the ideas I have are practically risk-free for whatever company or person to whom I'm intending to present it at some point in the very near future. Almost all of them are risk-free, like they're no-brainers. I'm going to begin here soon laying out ideas that are already spelled out, not just ideas, like ideas that are not only ready to be enacted, but in some ways I'll be able to point to, this is where I've already taken the actions. And in the biggest ways, that's in the operation of being a legal business. I've been a legal business this will be my 8th year. I'm in year 8. I've filed, my business, my 1099 work as part of my legal managing the web, it's like that is getting just like securing a home versus renting when you're always at the whim of somebody else, unless you're fortunate enough to have a relationship with your landlord where you've agreed where they can't just yank it out from under you. That's rare here in Sarasota. So it's a big deal that I had to create the stability of my own home and increase the chance of me not leaving here until I want to leave here. And instead of such a big decision being made for me, and that's what you open yourself up to in renting versus owning. Same thing for my business. It's like I've got to that's how we do things in the human game. So I've got to have that framework, but I'm trying to make it as simple as possible. And I'm telling you, the energy to do that is completely different than the creative, wonderful magic energy that's not bound by any of those restrictions. And so trying to do both here now for 7.5 years, I'm finally close to the place where now all the foundation is in. The house foundation is in. The business foundation is in. I've got the framework within which I can operate. I've had the ideas for 7.5 years. I've shared them all. A lot of them on YouTube. They've been right there under people's noses. But the biggest thing that was quote unquote missing or not ready yet was the world being receptive to such a drastically different way of looking at the world. What? You bought your house with your ex and you guys didn't, when you first bought it, and you didn't sign anything? You did it on your words? Yep. Was it smooth and easy? Hell no. Of course not. But do I regret that? Not at all. Are you kidding me? That's the world I see and live in. And I honored it, and it might not, in the end, all that happened was that both parties, well, I can't speak for his side of the experience other than he got every penny back. And for me, it was life-altering. And even though we weren't able to really live it with the intention of not getting caught up in the fact that we didn't make it legal, because that definitely made some shit really intense and exacerbated already challenging things in our relationship, but we both claimed, and I think we both meant it. I know I did. Again, I can't really speak for him. We wanted to believe in a world where you could do these sorts of big things and get back to handshakes and trusts and your word. And I've got example after example where I've learned and am doing these things and learning how to do them in less risky things, if that makes sense, which is why as my brother prepares to buy into 10% of the house, we're making a promissory note. We're getting it all written out. So I don't really like that. I know I don't need that. If I tell somebody I'm going to do something or commit to something or agree to something, you better believe I'm going to hold to what I say. Abso-freaking-lutely, my word is my trust and bond. I don't need that piece of paper. I don't want that piece of paper. I want my word to matter. And in the scenario where, and it happens a lot, where you can't imagine every scenario that may come up. You trust that you're mature enough and you respect and love the other person enough as a fellow human being to work through and find a way to compromise, to agree to disagree and find a way that you can get to where you genuinely both feel like, a lot of times in that situation, somebody probably is going to feel like they got the short end of the stick. But you honestly have the ability to work and come to a compromise where you minimize that feeling for both parties or however many parties are involved to the greatest extent possible. And again, calling a spade, you ain't being real if you look at our world in mass, and we are no ability to do that. In fact, it's worse than it's ever been out in our world to respect one another's differing opinions. Actually respect and see one another as having valid, different opinions. We have no idea how to agree to disagree. And we're spending all our time still fighting over what we don't agree on, rather than what my suggestion would be, is to begin to learn and watch how different a world manifests in reality when you actually start operating on what's going well, what you agree on. Focus on that and you give your attention to that. Where you trust one another, where you cooperate, where you want the other person to be as happy and successful as you desire to be for yourself. That is what I've been living. And I knew there was a shift happening. I believe Ironman, I believe that coming into more of this, my work, and standing in it and being authentic and finally kind of coming out of hiding, if you will, my soul still tells me that I put my time in the Ironman world, really focusing on my masculine side because that's what that world demands of me, knowing that it was only going to be a matter of time before I was going to be given an opportunity in one way or another to reveal this other side of me, the feminine side. And I now, again, being that our entire industry is going to shift. Our entire industry is shifting right now in unrecognizable ways because of the virus. Like, if there's only one thing that we can say within the event industry is you can pretty much guarantee they are never, not in any time soon, not in the foreseeable next few years, it is not going to resemble anything like what it resembled the last event I worked in Arizona in November. It's going to be a completely and it's going to be starting with what companies even come through this on the other side. So to be smack dab in the middle of living in an industry, and I don't have a front row seat, but, relative to other industries and the size and the influence of Ironman in the world, and when you actually do the math of the number of people that are, getting a check from Ironman, it's pretty small. So I'm not, obviously, I'm not in the core, but even on the periphery, I'm on the periphery of the inner, if that makes sense. I'm on the far periphery of the inner circle of these races and this event and this company at a time where it is literally being threatened to disappear. But miraculously and amazingly, if there was ever an industry and a mindset of the collective in that industry that could take these extremely challenging times for that industry, specific to that industry, and take it and make it work and find a way, it is the people with whom I've worked on the Ironman circuit. And I'm extending that all the way to vendors, all the vendors that I've worked with, and the people, that Ironman world, that is not a victim world. That is a very empowered people that are taking their own lives by the horns, and they're not playing the victim anymore. I'm taking the life by the horn. That's the collective energy, and that's what these times want us to do. And the more that we can understand to what degree we have a role to create the reality, oh my God, I know that's why okay, that's 3 storylines. 2380 Datura, the house, the farm, and Ironman. Those are the only 3 I'm going to share today, because I've been way more amped in the delivery of this. However, I haven't listened to it, of course, but and a lot of times when I'm recording, obviously I'm present, but I'm kind of sort of sometimes not fully present. Like I'm attempting to surrender to something higher to me and just kind of like not be Alyson, not overanalyze it, don't overfeel it, don't overanalyze it, don't think about it, just surrender your personality and your mind and your vessel to try to bring words to the energy that wants to come through right now in the here and now. That's what I do when I record. And so I won't know more until I listen to this later today or tomorrow or whenever. But it feels like it's the furthest I've gotten to try to, like I said, bring some sort of form, creative framework to all that wants to come through me right now, all that wants to be expressed, all that I've been living, all that like it's going to be through the stories. And this recording that I've done today here on May 2nd is definitely one of the first times I've spoken of my dream, if you will, my dream, my vision, all the dreams within the dream. It's the first time I've managed to put it together quite like this in recent times. So it feels like that's going to be pretty substantial. Likely this will be shared on my YouTube channel, but I fully expect that very few, if anybody, will listen to it, because it's still not about that. The podcast is coming. It's coming. I think I'm beginning to feel confident to actually put a date on it. Like I kind of feel like, July 1, 4th of July. I like that, the kind of independence and freedom. I kind of like that theme of like, do you think, Alyson, if you were to analyze how you feel, where you were on the podcast before the virus hit. We've been in a massive reconciliation of energy and life. What represents my life? Massive, massive. It hasn't been just, sitting home and not having work and wondering when events are going to start and living on my savings. When the opportunity at the farm happened, I knew I couldn't say no. That was a no-brainer. And at first I did say no. For the first 2 weeks, I did not work the market because the thought of working with my brother again, based on the last time I worked that closely with him, it triggered a lot of stuff I don't ever want to feel again. And we've never talked about it. So at first I did say no. And then I was biking, and I hadn't been on my bike in a couple of years, and it was like my 3rd or 4th ride, and I'm biking like 35 miles. I'm in the middle of my ride, and I'm like, what are you doing? How can you say no to come on, it's a job right now. You got it. No, yes, you have the savings, so you really don't need it per se, but that savings wasn't intended to be blown through in this way this year. And this farm job gives you an opportunity to not miss a beat, right? Don't miss a beat. Okay, so you lost 12 grand in the event world. You're starting to make it back up right now. It's like, okay, well, I guess this is my new reality. I just finished my 4th week. But it was a no-brainer once I was able to get some breathing room. The virus hit, my mom was here, my mom went home, and, big stuff on the ground. That's when the market thing, and I'm just like, no, I need to recalibrate my own energy. I love my mom. We had a fantastic visit, but she was here almost 3 weeks, and obviously we're very different in the way that we see the world. She is all Taurus, and I am all Sagittarius. She's 73, I'm 44. Come on. And I'm very sensitive to energy, especially my immediate family's energy. So when she left, there was a very real multiple week period where I had to find my bearings again. And as soon as I was able to find my bearings of, okay, this is how I'm feeling when not influenced by my mom's energy and my relationship with my mother, not influenced by, a lot more at that point interaction with my brother than I normally have because my mom was in town. And I realized you got to say yes to this. And then part of the spiritual, it's like, okay, here and now, man, go with it. Every piece of it that's uncomfortable, be real with yourself, honor and go with it, because this is no small thing, this happening at the farm. And so I'm not quite sure how I went back off on that tangent. But we're going to close this recording for now. And a bit, like I said, big week ahead. We got to get the trust. We got to get my new insurance policy. We got to get the trust taken care of. We got to get the promissory note for Andrew to buy in at 10% of the house. And as soon as I get that cash, I'm calling to get my windows finished and the new garage door. Like, it's going to be a lot of kind of this stuff that's not what I call inspiring. It's kind of this practical crap. But the journey and the challenge is going to be is make it as fun as possible. Make it light, make it amazing, make it magical, because it is, Alyson. And stop defining what this has to look like. Like surrender more, have more faith. Live as miraculously as your life is right now. You did this. You took this leap and you saw this as your life for real 7 years ago. And it wasn't for real. You were renting. You were like, none of it was for real. You didn't and now it's all quote unquote for real. You made this happen for real. And you know that although there's a lot more that you want to be for real right now, namely you want to be doing very different work, using very different parts of yourself. You know that just like now represents a reality and physical that didn't exist but in your mind and in your heart 7 years ago in the Earth game. It didn't exist yet. You knew it was real and you knew it was coming, but it wasn't real. Just like that's real now, but it wasn't real then. Everything that's not quote unquote real in the Earth game now that you want so badly, you've given yourself such a massive example of just be patient. It'll come. And trust that spirit, God, universe, the one, it's got your back. It'll come when it most serves that. You're vowing, you're serving the one. That's what I'm here to do, serve the one. And the one is in the driver's seat. The one knows. You as Alyson do not know, you cannot know. And although you've remembered yourself to be more than Alyson, you are not in this, I don't have the consciousness. I don't know all that. I'm not, I'm Alyson. That's what my consciousness is of Alyson. I know that the greater truth is I'm way more than the character. But that's all kind of, I'm not living in those dimensions and realities. I'm living consciously as this character of Alyson, and I want to utilize every aspect of this character of Alyson in a way that helps the greatest number of other physical human characters to benefit, thrive, be happy, succeed, all these positive things as possible. Serving the one, because I know they are me and I am them at the ultimate. This Earth game where we're playing these roles and seemingly separate, we're not. But we don't have a mass world that's acting with that knowing. And that's what I'm here to help show the way towards. For anybody for whom it resonates. And I'm going to do it through the stories of Alyson's life. And I've been doing it. Like I said, go to my YouTube channel. I've been sharing it. But now I'm going to connect the dots a little bit more. And I'm going to weave it together and really show and live. It's not even, it's to live. And why? To just show us, oh my God, we don't need these governments. We don't need to wait. The power we have in your own life. How do you help the collective? You look at your own individual life and you get yourself in every way imaginable aligned to love. And recognize and be real the games you're playing that are clearly not love-based, but it's but that's what you do. You don't make decisions unless you sign documents. Yeah, but is that inherent? Does that have trust as an inherent underlying, and again, I'm not saying to all of a sudden with the biggest things of our lives not follow the legal, documents. I'm not saying that. You can't do that right away. What I'm suggesting is that you find the areas where you can make and take those quote unquote risks from the 3D Earth game perspective. It's a risk. If you make any sort of decision without having it in writing and I'm suggesting not only that, I'm living it, and I don't care if I end up living in a world with just 5 people. if we're all 5 people that are living with this absolute knowing and we're acting it out in our human form, we're acting out for real that we understand we are all connected. And it behooves me to have everybody around me, especially most intimately connected to my life, to be thriving. What good is it if I'm thriving and no one else is? And we don't know a world where masses thrive. We know a world where, again, collectively, a relatively small amount of people are thriving. And now, given the virus, that number is going to even go down drastically more. So it behooves us to have somebody out there talking about things in this sort of seemingly out there way. And that is me. So with that, I will conclude. That's perfect. It's just over 55 minutes. That's great. I never want these recordings to go more than an hour. That is sort of the target time, is to do an hour. And like I said, the framework around which I'm going to be sharing and expressing is really revealing itself. And I know that as I take more and more care of some of this practical crap that I really hate, all this legal stuff and paperworks and, oh my God, like as each one of those things gets taken care of, the energy that this light and free and imaginative and creative energy, like I'll be able to surrender to my own character more and trust the foundations that I've set up. The very real, the house and the business. Now I've got the time and the opportunity. Let's go. Let go. And fully express. But it's hard to do both of those at the same time. To really let go like I want to let go. I mean, I got animals that depend on me. I have a job now 4 days a week that I have to get up at 3 a.m. for. Like, it takes a real effort to balance doing the practical and allowing time and space for the magical, the unbound, the unrestricted, the free energy of everything to interact and come together. And that it's hard to do both at the same time. And so, but I'm getting there. And I know the more I get rid of the heavy stuff that really weighs me down, and I work through why it weighs me down and just accept it, I know that the magic of the sharing is only going to increase. So thank you for listening, if you've listened. And I eagerly await even to see myself how this ends up coming through over the course of the next days, weeks, months, and year. So thank you very much, and we'll chat again soon.